Mexico City, the oldest capital in North and South America, has a population of over 21 million people, making it one of the largest cities in the world. For 35 days, I increased that number by 1. Today, I want to share my impressions of Mexico City after living there for a little over a month. We'll talk about the city, the food, the people and culture, and whether or not I think you should visit this elevated metropolis. Hey everyone, I'm Ethan. I have a cooking channel on YouTube that I mainly run, but I've also started to upload some of my other interests onto this personal channel. So if you like what you see, stick around, but let's hop right into the topic. I'll give you guys some timestamps either on screen or in a pinned comment or something. So if you guys want to jump around to different topics that you may be interested in, feel free to do so. But without further ado, let's hop into the topic at hand with my thoughts on the city. Like I mentioned in the intro, Mexico City is one of the oldest capitals in the Americas, and thus it's going to have some pretty great history. I would highly recommend checking out places like the Palacio de Bellas Artes, the Zócalo, which is the central square, or Castillo de Chapultepec, which I'm pretty sure is the only castle in North and South America. And that's just some of the old wonders. There are truly so many sights to see and enjoy. You know, I was in Mexico City for 35 days and I still didn't get to see nearly as much as I wanted to. I mean, there's millions of different museums. There's literally a site for everyone out there. I mean, for me personally, I was mainly after the food, which I had a lot of. Anyway, my next impression is pay very close attention when you're crossing the street. So I would say, based on my experience with US cities, cars are really yielding to pedestrians, but in Mexico City, as a pedestrian walking around, it really feels like it's the other way, in that as a pedestrian, you are actually really yielding to the cars and not the other way around. You know, on the main roads where there's signs for when you're supposed to walk and things like that, like I completely get that. But even on like some small streets where like it's a one-way and there's minimal cars, like many times I was the one waiting for cars to cross. I think in total I was like waved to cross one time. And it's not to say that like the city is not walkable at all. Like that was my main method of transportation all throughout my 35 days. It's just that you really need to pay close attention, and you especially got to watch out for the guys on the motorcycles because they'll go in between traffic and things like that. Bottom line, pay extra close attention when crossing the street and you'll be perfectly fine. My next impression is an interesting one in that Mexico City has really clean sidewalks. For such a big city with so many people, Mexico has really clean sidewalks. I feel like I always was seeing somebody sweeping or scrubbing the sidewalks out in front of their shops or just in some of the public areas. And what makes this even more impressive to me is that there's really not like a lot of public trash cans. Like I feel like I was always looking for a trash can when I had something, but there's not like trash on the sidewalks because of that. The people of Mexico City are definitely taking care of the streets and sidewalks, and it definitely shows. It makes it really enjoyable to walk around when, you know, everything's just kind of a little bit cleaner than you would expect. So good on you, Mexico City. Moving on to number 4, cash is kind of still king. And I say this because a lot of small businesses, street foods, and restaurants and things of that nature, they're all still completely cash-based. You don't need much, but I would say having at least 200 to 300 pesos on you, which is like $10 to $15, is really helpful because you can pop into some street food stands, you can just pop into the little snack stands they have set up, or actually a lot of the public bathrooms, you normally have to pay around like 5 pesos to use them. And this is quite different from in the US where people like hardly ever carry cash anymore. I mean, I know for me, like if I have cash in my wallet, like in the US, it's a severe rarity. I basically use my card and everything. But in Mexico City, you're definitely gonna want to carry some pesos with you so you can get a little bit deeper into that cultural experience. Oh, and for me, I found the easiest way to get pesos was to just look up an ATM and then just use your debit or credit card. Hopefully you don't get charged fees, but I know some places do. Personally, mine were all reimbursed to me, but yeah, I mean, ATM is going to be your easiest and best bet to just get out some pesos. Moving on to my next one, this is one of my favorite things about Mexico City, and that there are so many green public spaces. I know when you're in the city, especially in sometimes in the US, it feels like you're just trapped in this concrete jungle, but one of the great things about Mexico City is that they do have all these little green spaces, and it kind of makes you forget that you're, you know, in this huge city with all their little parks and their little stops. I would highly suggest just sitting down and watching the sunset go down. It's just a great little experience, but I love the green spaces in Mexico City. All right, number 6, there are markets galore. So there are a bunch of markets in each neighborhood of Mexico City offering produce, foods, little gifts, and more. A couple of my personal favorites were Mercado Median for food and Mercado Coyoacan for the best variety. Mercado de San Juan and Mercado Cuauhtémoc are also great options, but there's plenty of markets around the city and you can find what you're looking for. It's a great little cultural experience, all the vendors and people offering things to sell. There's also some really, really good food options too. To end out the city section, I want to kind of bust a myth about Mexico, which feels like one of the biggest ones out there, and that Mexico City or Mexico in general is not safe. You know, when talking about it with people about the States, you'd almost think that it's like rife with drug violence and that, you know, you're always going to get hurt if you go to Mexico City. Regarding this, I'd like to say at no point did I feel unsafe in Mexico City. And you know, a lot of times I was, you know, carrying around some high value items like my camera or things of that nature. Now, obviously, whenever you're in a big city, I feel there are a couple precautions that you want to take. You know, make sure you keep track of your belongings, go to areas that you know well or are, you know, the safer parts of the city and things of that nature. You know, don't go out alone like late at night and you should be okay. But that's not like a Mexico City problem. That's just like a general big city problem. There's good parts and there's bad parts. But for me, Mexico City, I had absolutely zero issues with safety the entire time I was there. Now, moving on from the city, we're gonna move to my favorite topic, which is the food. And I could go on for a long time here, but I'm gonna keep it fairly short. If you want some more specific food stuff, I do have a number of videos on my cooking channel. But anyway, the first thing I wanna say is that street food is so much more than tacos. So I have a video about street food out on my cooking channel, but I feel like most people think tacos are the end-all be-all for street food and Mexican cuisine, but there really is so much more than that. Some of my new favorites include fried quesadillas, consommé, and the pambazo sandwich. All right, speaking of food, I know I'm gonna make some enemies with this one, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Al Pastor tacos are not that great. And this is not to say that Al Pastor tacos are bad in any way. It's just, it's not as good as I feel like people hype it up to be. Like, it's decent, it's a decent taco, but for me, there's a lot of other tacos that I'd much rather have. I think the biggest problem I have is the pineapple. Sometimes they lop it off and it's like this big chunk, and then like it kind of overpowers the taco. It's just fairly low on my taco list. Like, for example, I'd rather have carnitas, poblano con queso, arrachera, which is like a hanger steak, carne enchilada I like a lot too. And then the fish tacos, there's a lot of good fish taco offerings. Like you can go get marlin, or they actually have this really cool one. It's like a chili relleno, but stuffed with marlin. Super delicious and tasty. Al Pastor, it's decent, but I feel like it's kind of hyped up. For me personally, it's definitely lower on my taco list than I would say most other people. Speaking of fish tacos, by the way, there actually is some pretty great seafood in the city, which I was completely surprised by. I mean, obviously it's not near the beach. I think it's like 3 or maybe 4 hours, but you can actually get some really good fish tacos at El Pescadito. A lot of people were suggesting that to me in my first impressions video, and I went and it was very, very delicious. And then if you're looking for more like a nice sit-down place, going to Contramar in Roma Norte was an absolutely unbelievable experience. Really, really nice service, and the seafood was really, really good. We got like a whole grilled fish, and we got ceviches, tostada with tuna. Like, there's a ton of different offerings. Love that place. Would highly, highly suggest it if you are visiting Mexico City. All right, and then let's move to a street food that surprised me, which was tamal dolce. So sweet tamales, they're literally bright pink, and I really wasn't expecting to like it, but it actually became one of my favorite little treats to get. The sweet tamales taste like these perfect soggy pancakes, and I mean that in like the best possible way. The texture is absolutely addicting, whether you're tracking some down at 8 in the morning or maybe 10 o'clock at night. I did definitely get some at 10 o'clock at night. They're seriously super delicious, and I kind of want to create some at home and see if I can make some good ones. All right, my fifth impression for food, well, I guess this is kind of a tip, but if there are people around a street food stand, it probably means it's good, and it probably means you should stop. So as with all food, there's gonna be good food, there's gonna be bad food, and a good way in Mexico City to see if there's good food is if there's a lot of people around a street food stand. Two of my favorite quesadilla spots I found like this. There were just a bunch of people around, so I was like, I'm joining, and it did not let me down. So to end out the food section, let's answer a food myth, in that if you eat the street food, you will immediately get sick. So this is obviously not the case. You can get sick from eating street food, but you can also get sick from eating any of the food. And anytime you're traveling to a new country, generally you're gonna have a little bit of adjustment period because your body's not used to the foods that it's eating. That being said, I only got sick twice in 35 days. One was like over a week after I got there. I was perfectly fine up until then, and then just got sick for like 24 hours. Took some Pepto-Bismol, was good to go. And then the same thing happened to me like another 3 weeks later. Just stomach wasn't feeling good, took some Pepto-Bismol, was good in 24 hours. And like I literally ate the street food probably at least once every single day. And for the street food video we did on my cooking channel, like we literally visited like 6 or 7 different places. So you should definitely eat and try the street food and not really worry about it. You know, it's a great cultural experience to just try the street food. You can always go back to restaurants after a time or two if you do get sick. But like I said, like I ate it the entire time I was down there and had very minimal issues. All right, last up, let's talk a little bit about the culture and the people. So number one is do not expect people to speak English. You know, I think especially as Americans, we think that kind of everyone speaks English in major cities, but you gotta realize you're in a different city, different national language. You're probably gonna need to speak some Spanish. I really enjoyed the challenge of it because that was something that I wanted to work on, was my Spanish. And you know, you can really get by on some like limited phrases, because I mean like the majority of when you're actually gonna be speaking it, you know, if you're just in for like a week or something, is gonna be ordering food, or if you're shopping, or things of that nature. Great things to use are Google Translate. I use that all the time when I was down here for like longer drawn out sentences or just a word I didn't know how to say. There's also another app that I think some people were suggesting to me. I didn't actually try it out, but it might have been like Say So or something. If I find it, I'll leave a link down below and you guys can try it in case you're visiting Mexico City and want a good translating app. But overall, I would say just embrace speaking a new language. You know, everyone was super understanding when they saw that, you know, I was trying to work on my Spanish. And, you know, I had to say I don't know or sorry or speak slower a lot of times. But, you know, hey, it is what it is. You gotta get out of the comfort zone if you want to get better at a language. And being in Mexico City definitely helped me do that. And then another tip along that same lines is try to ask questions if you can. People definitely like it when you show an interest in things. For me specifically, I was really interested in learning about the food. So I would always ask like targeted questions saying like, what type of chili is in the salsa? So then like I know kind of what to hear for when I'm receiving that answer. And that was really fun for me, just to kind of connect with some of the street food vendors and see kind of what they're cooking and what kind of ingredients they're using. So I would just say, if you can, just go ahead and ask some questions, even if they're like super basic. Like all my conversations were probably like elementary level, but they were still fun to have. They work on your Spanish and things like that. So if you can, definitely ask questions. Another great way to connect to the culture in Mexico City is to go to a lucha fight. So I think this is actually like the second or maybe third biggest sport in Mexico. And the atmosphere of the crowd and just the lights and the cheering and everything, and it's actually quite a bit of fun. Here's a couple clips from the lucha fight that we went to one night. Lastly, I want to say that overall the people are really friendly and welcoming to outside visitors like myself. You know, I had good experiences with everyone when I was there, you know, whether it was Airbnb hosts, restaurants, street food vendors, people where I just needed to like ask directions, or, you know, just happen to meet somebody on the street. Everyone was super friendly, welcoming, and interesting to talk to. So overall, just Mexico City, you guys are awesome. All right, to wrap this video up, let's answer that final question. Should you visit Mexico City? So if you all watched the video so far, you probably know what my answer is gonna be, and you should absolutely visit Mexico City if you get the chance. Whether you're coming here for the food, the beautiful sights, or to escape some cold weather, I believe any kind of traveler will have a wonderful time in Mexico City. And if anybody is thinking about traveling to Mexico City and you still have some questions, feel free to drop them below. I will answer them if I can, or if there are any people from Mexico City you can answer them as well. Hopefully we can all learn from each other about this awesome city. That is going to wrap it up for this video. I will catch you in the next one.